A significant number of individuals have taken on the persona of the Green Goblin, making it virtually impossible to eliminate the character. The Green Goblin is akin to a contagious disease that passes from one person to another.
In Amazing Spider-Man number 35, Peter Parker fell under the influence of Norman Osborn's sins, leading him to embark on a destructive rampage across New York City.
His actions were a consequence of being possessed. Kraven the Hunter and Queen Goblin injected him with the sins of the Green Goblin, causing him to adopt the persona of the Green Goblin.
This compelled him to seek vengeance against those he perceived as his enemies.
One of his most notorious acts during this rampage was targeting Mary Jane and her new partner, Paul, in the Holland tunnels.
Spider-Man caused widespread chaos, destroying vehicles and endangering lives in his pursuit.
He came dangerously close to killing several individuals, including Kraven and Paul. Fortunately, with the assistance of Norman Osborn, Spider-Man was eventually restored to his normal self and freed from the influence of the Goblin's sins. This kind of menacing behavior was the type that J. Jonah Jameson used to criticize vehemently in newspapers, on the radio, and more recently, on his podcast. However, Spider-Man was fortunate that Jameson's perspective on him had evolved over time. Norman Osborn's journey toward reform has always been precarious, given its supernatural origins. Instead of renouncing villainy, Norman's sins were extracted from him, and the spear used for this process can transfer those sins to another individual upon contact. This is precisely how Peter Parker became burdened with the sins of the Green Goblin. The conclusion of Amazing Spider-Man number 35 suggests that, in the course of saving Peter, Norman reabsorbed the sins of the Green Goblin, rather than the intended transfer through the spear. However, it also hints at a darker truth. Even without his sins, Norman may still harbor a part of the Goblin within him. This raises the possibility that the Green Goblin is an intrinsic part of Norman Osborn's identity, or that the Goblin leaves a lasting imprint on anyone it possesses, making them susceptible to being transformed into the Goblin once more. It's worth noting that Harry Osborn also took on the Green Goblin persona, and various other characters have assumed the mantle at different times. Regardless of whether these implications hold true in the long run, recent events have demonstrated the destructive power of the Goblin, even when Norman is not its host. Similar devastation occurred during Harry's tenure as the Goblin. This underscores that the Green Goblin is more than just a supervillain, it's a malevolent force that can be transmitted from one person to another. Despite the existence of a cure for the Green Goblin, it seems that its evil may never be entirely eradicated from the Marvel Universe.
Subscribe to stay updated with more comic news.